Anthony Dsouza is also known as Father Tony. Presently, he is the director of Premanjali, which is a family counseling and training institute at Vasai, Maharashtra. Formerly, he was the director of St. Xavier's College, Fort, Mumbai. He has held many leadership roles in the field of education and counseling. He was awarded the doctorate degree as a class of excellence in the practice of clinical psychology, and he has a very good hand in various approaches with respect to NLP, EMDR, completion, Elena Rubinfield synergy, Gestalt therapy, family therapy, brief therapy, etc. in the United States. So we have Dr. Anthony with us. I would like to hand over to Dr. Anthony for the topic fear versus compassionate parenting. Welcome, sir.
Thank you very much, doctors. I'm not getting your Saumil. Saumil?
Yeah, Dr. Saumil. Yes, sir.
Yes. I'm so sorry. It's like last minute running after and catching the train because thanks to the cyclone, lots of trees had fallen, electricity had gone. Only last night we got it. Telephone lines are still not on. And finally, I got the internet. Maybe I was destined to speak today. I'm not going, since the time is limited, I'm not going to introduce the topic in detail. The topic is fear and compassion. We are going to look at these two topics. And you'll notice how these two topics are very, very important in our lives. The capacity to be fearful, the capacity to be compassionate. Both are within us. But the purpose of fear and the purpose of compassion, those qualities that are within each one of us, I call fear a quality. Later on, you'll see why. Fulfill different functions, different roles. So it's important for us to understand what roles they fulfill. In order to understand their role, first of all, fear is something that is, before I go into the roles, fear is something which all of us experience. And that is very important for us to survive. Without fear, we would not survive in our world. And we have inherited this from animals. Animals in the wild need fear to survive. A deer without fear will become a victim to a predator in the wild, in the jungle. And we have inherited the same. And the same process goes on within us, which we shall talk, if tomorrow is possible, we shall talk about it tomorrow. So fear, we have experienced fear in different forms. By the way, beneath all our negative feelings is fear. Something is threatened there. Just explore it. Whether it's jealousy, whether it's anger, whether it's worries, anxiety, you'll find fear beneath. Something is threatened. Compassion, on the other hand, if I were to define compassion, it is love with understanding. It is love, the capacity of love within us that helps us to understand the other, to stand under, to get into the other person's shoes, to get into the other person's skin, and to know what the person is going through. So much so, if you are really compassionate, you will be able to say, if I were in that child's place, saw things the way the child saw, thought the way the child thought, and felt the way the child felt, I too may have been motivated to act the same way. So both these are important in our lives, fear as well as compassion. But in order to understand the two clearly, I need to talk to you about how we have evolved to be the way we are. Though we belong to human species, we say we are human beings. Neurologically, in terms of evolution, neurological evolution, we are in the adolescence phase. What do I mean by this? Who's an adolescent? Adolescent is someone who has left the shore of childhood but hasn't yet reached the shore of adulthood. So if you will use it for human beings, we have left the shore of animalhood but haven't yet reached the shore of humanhood. Why do I say this? Because in terms of evolution, we have inherited 3 brains. Reptilian brain, that is the base of the skull, brain stem we call it, 300 million years old, brain of reptiles, crawling things, lizards, snakes, crocodiles. It's the oldest brain. All our automatic behaviors, things we do habitually, come from this brain. Above that, that is what we call midbrain, the limbic system, is the emotional brain. All our emotional reactions come from this brain. There's a part here of the limbic system, what we call amygdala. Amygdala stores all our emotional experiences, positive and negative. Now, that we call mammalian brain. It's about 200 million years old. So what I call this reactive brain or emotional brain. And right on the top is a neocortex. This is a new kid on the block, the latest. In terms of capacity, most powerful, but functionally the weakest. The newest and the weakest. The reptilian brain, that is the automatic brain, and the reactive brain, that is the emotional brain, that is reptilian and mammalian, control our lives. Control our lives. Bruce Lipton, he says 90 to 95% of our behavior is motivated, controlled by the unconscious. And these 2 brains are related with the unconscious. So on one side, we have the reptilian brain, mammalian brain, and on the other side, the human brain, the neocortex. Now, one thing you realize, the reptiles and the mammals are governed by fear. Fear is very important for them to survive. Survival instinct is a basic instinct. So they have this fear. Now, what does the human brain have? It has 3 unique functions, which today we are talking about in terms of emotional intelligence, spiritual intelligence, number of names that are given. But what are these 3 aspects which are unique to human beings? One is self-awareness. Only humans can become self-aware of their automatic behaviors, so habitual behaviors, or their emotional reactions. Only humans can reflect on themselves. We call it self-awareness or mindfulness. Daniel Siegel, a neurologist, psychiatrist, and a psychotherapist, a professor too, talks a lot about this. We don't have the time for it. So one characteristic which is unique to human beings is self-awareness. Two, only we humans can choose. Animals follow the rule of reward and punishment, pleasure and pain. They avoid pain and seek pleasure. Whatever gives them, punishes them, they withdraw from. Whatever gives them reward, they move towards. This is the animal brain. We humans have the capacity to choose. I may not like to take medicine, but I know it will be useful for me to get well. So I choose. I'm walking down the road and I see an ice cream shop. I would like to have an ice cream, but I know I have diabetes. That's not good for me. So I choose not to have it. So mindful, that is self-awareness, choiceful. Third, humans have a unique capacity to love. These are three elements that make us human beings. But unfortunately, we are in the adolescent phase, neurologically. Our tendency is to regress rather than progress. Regress to automatic behavior and reactive behavior rather than to live in awareness, mindfully, choicefully, in love. That is the reason why we are what we are. We want love, we want peace, we want joy, we want all this. But where there are so many conflicts, so many wars, so many things going wrong. Why? Because we are stuck. We tend to regress. When there is threat, when there is fear, we regress. So how do we live mindfully, choicefully in love? That's our challenge. So the human brain has the capacity for compassion. Only human brain. Animal brain, that is reptilian and mammalian, has fear, and which is very important for survival. Suppose I'm a woman, someone is attacking me, or a man for that matter, I have to protect myself. Fear will come, that will help me to protect myself. It's necessary on certain occasions. Now, during this pandemic, we are experiencing both. You see the media, we see how fear affects people. We also see how we are frightened. We also see people with compassion, reaching out, the frontline workers, the doctors, the nurses, all the medical professionals, all of them, they are in terms of living a life of compassion. They are fearful, but despite that, they choose to operate from love. These days I've been watching the news, and especially some of the stories of people, how they have gone out of their way to reach out to a brother, sister, parents, children, neighbor, unknown people. So that's compassion. Now, I'm going to take you, since we are talking about children, since we are in this evolutionary phase, neurologically, then why do our children end up behaving sometimes in certain ways? Why do adults behave the way they do? I want to speak to you about a research that was made famous by Dr. Nadine Burke Harris in US. She was a general practitioner. Now she's a surgeon, I think. She made this study, which is called ACE study. They took 17,500 samples of adults in US and studied them, looked at their behavior, and tried to link that to their childhood upbringing. They looked at 10 ACEs. ACE is an acronym for Adverse Childhood Experiences. Adverse Childhood Experiences. Bruce Lipton, I mentioned his name earlier, says the first 7 years are very vital for a child's growth, because the child is like a sponge absorbing, because the rational brain has not yet developed fully. It's just developing. So it passively absorbs the environment. He even goes to say, it is not your DNA or gene that will determine how you will evolve. It is the environment, and he has researched and shown that. Amazing. Read about Bruce Lipton, and you can get a lot of videos on YouTube about him. Amazing guy. So environment of the child is very, very vital for the growth of the child. So what are the 10 ACEs they spoke about? Physical abuse, emotional abuse, sexual abuse, physical neglect, emotional neglect, mental illness of someone, one of the parents, someone in the family, violence in the home, alcoholism, drug addiction, separation, divorce, and incarceration or imprisonment of someone in the family. So they discovered more ACEs an adult had in their childhood, more adverse the behavior was in their adulthood. They found a great correlation. I put that in my article, but there's no time to give you that. But great correlation between adverse childhood experiences and adult behavior. You can watch the video YouTube of Nadine Burke Harris, and she will. I also quote her in my article. Okay. At the same time, I want to say this. Parents, you parents, I can't see you, but I guess you are all there. You parents are a privileged lot. Because if God were to incarnate himself today on this planet, he would take the form of parents. If God were to incarnate himself today on this planet, he would take the form of parents. Because parents, in some way, represent God's love for us, the quality of God's love for us. Let me illustrate this with an example. Why I say, if God were to incarnate himself, he would incarnate himself in the form of parents. You know, I'm in the rural area. That's why lots of trees have fallen here due to the cyclone. I'm in Vasai, north of Vasai, Nalasopara West, where Premanjali is situated. And so this place is a combination of rural and urban. So when I go to visit people in the villages, now and then I find a hen clucking with chicks all following her. And if you observe this hen, she's hyper alert, so to say. Slight noise, she immediately clucks in a particular way and draws the chicks to herself and protects them under her wings. And when she sees everything is clear, she allows them to roam. Then when she finds something very nourishing for the chicks, she clucks them again and brings them close so that they can feed themselves, and she also feeds herself. This is what we do to our children when they are small. We hold them close. We nourish them with our love, our affection, unconditional love. We are there for them. Now, going back to my example of the hen and the chicks. When these chicks grow up, they are still used to being dependent on the hen. They still want to follow the hen. But what does a hen do? She pecks them. Say, go, go, find your destiny, find your life. She doesn't allow them. So a love that nurtures them, that takes care of them, that protects them, and when the time comes, lets them go. Let our children go. Help them to find their destiny. We don't determine their destiny. We help them. We create an environment for them. Now, in order to create that kind of environment for our children, that nurturing, at the same time, certain freedom that we give them as they grow up, does not come easily. So we have to ask ourselves, how are we as persons, as parents? What is my relationship with myself? What is my relationship with my spouse? How closely bonded we are we? That's important. I don't know how many of you have seen this movie, The Bucket List. In this movie, two men, Morgan Freeman and Jack Nicholson, these are the two guys, main characters in this movie, The Bucket List. There is this scene that I want to share with you. Both these, Morgan Freeman and Jack Nicholson, are together in a hospital room with beds next to each other, with terminal cancer and just 6 months to live. Just 6 months to live. Morgan Freeman is sitting in his bed and writing something on his notepad. Jack Nicholson on the other side is curious to know what he is writing. Just then the nurse comes and gives him his latest test results related with his cancer, and they aren't good. He feels very upset. He tears the sheet, crumples it, and throws it on the floor in disgust. Jack Nicholson, who is curious to know what he's writing, grabs that crumpled sheet, straightens it, and reads. And he asks Morgan, "What's this?" He said, "This is a bucket list." What's a bucket list? The things I would like to do before I kick the bucket, before I die. And Jack Nicholson says, "That's a great idea. Let me add my list too. Don't worry about money. I've got plenty of money." In fact, he owns that hospital. So don't worry about money. And so they make their bucket list, fulfilling things they want to do before they die. So the scene that I want to bring to your awareness is they are in Egypt, watching the pyramids of Egypt. And Morgan Freeman, who knows history, says something which touched me very much. He asked Jack Nicholson, he tells rather Jack Nicholson, you know, the Egyptian gods have a unique way of deciding who should enter heaven or not. When people die and their souls come before the gates of heaven, they ask them two questions. And the answers to these two questions will determine whether they will enter heaven or not. Now, what are these two questions? The first question is, have you found joy in your life? Have you found joy in your life? Second question, has your life brought joy to others? But you may say, oh, I made a big success in my business. I'm owning this mansion. I've got the latest car. I've got this, lovely, property and all that. Have you found joy in your life? Have you found joy in your life? Those mean nothing if you haven't found joy in your life. I make a quick distinction between joy and happiness. I know dictionary meaning for joy and happiness is the same. And these words are used interchangeably. But I make a distinction. Happiness is dependent. For example, I get a first class in my exams, I'm happy. Someone gets a job, he's happy. Someone gets a promotion, he's happy. Someone wins a lottery, is happy, whatever it is. Now, what happens if you don't pass the exam? What happens if you don't get that job? What happens if you don't get that promotion? What happens? So in other words, our happiness is dependent on these things happening. When they don't happen, we are unhappy. We are unhappy. So happiness is dependent. Happiness depends on outside, on other people, how other people react to us, how other people talk to us. If they praise us, we feel happy. If they criticize us, we are down in the dumps. The image that I would like to share with you about this, we are puppets in society's hands, right from childhood. You and I have been programmed to be puppets. Someone pulls one string and then I'm dancing. Someone pulls another string, I'm down in the dumps. Who controls what I feel? Outside. Joy, on the other hand, is an internal reality. It's something within us. Kabir, the mystic poet, said it beautifully. He says, the musk deer, Kasturi Mrug, has the musk in its navel. It gets the scent. It gets the scent. And is looking around in the grass for that scented object. So also Kabir says, people are looking for God in temples and mosques and churches when he is in their own hearts. I would like to rephrase it and say, people are looking for happiness, peace, love, freedom outside when it is inside. There's another beautiful story of God who was tired of people because everyone was pestering him. God, do this for me. God, do this for him. Give me this, give me that. So God was tired. So he called his angels around and said, you know, I'm tired of these people. They are pestering me day and night. I want to hide from them. Can you suggest where I could hide? And one angel said, you hide on the highest peak or the highest mountain, and no one will search for you there. Another angel said, no, 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 you'll hide in the depth of the deepest ocean, and no one will search for you there. Then he turned to his most trusted angel and asked, where do you suggest I should hide? And the angel said, you hide in the human heart. No one will search for you there. So where is that joy? Within us. It's within each one of us. And the journey is inward journey. Inward journey. In fact, I'm just starting a program tomorrow, what we call retreat, for 8 days from tomorrow, tomorrow night till 29th, online. We got nearly 400 people participating in this. They're registered. Now the point is, what is retreat? To withdraw into ourselves. Because like animals, our tendency is to look out. Our life is governed by our senses. Governed by our senses. And if you look at our economy, is by and large based on feeding our senses. Perfumes, gourmet, different kinds of dishes, restaurants, movies, videos, eyes, music, body lotions, different thing. You just reflect on this. They take us out. Nothing wrong with them. I'm not saying they are bad. We also have to cultivate the habit of moving inwards. And what will help us? Self-awareness. Remember those 3 elements that I mentioned to you that make us fully human? Become aware of ourselves. And that's where you'll be able to make that inward journey. Another aspect that I want to, suppose you are a joyful person. You have found joy in your life. Then you don't have to try to share it with others. It will overflow. It will overflow to your spouse. It will overflow to your children. So what kind of relationship will I have with my children? Let me give you another example to help you understand that. Let me give the example of a teacher. A teacher has knowledge. Teacher has skills. Teacher has expertise. Teacher has experience. And she is imparting something to the child who has no knowledge, no experience, no expertise. So the relationship generally between a teacher and a child is one up, one down. Teacher is giving and the child is receiving. You can substitute the teacher with anybody, social worker, anybody, you know, psychologist, counselor, psychiatrist, doctor, nurse. They have, we don't have, okay? We could be the patient, we could be the student, we could be anybody, okay? So one up, one down. And this we think is a relationship. There is another relationship which we often ignore. The child is a person. And you as a parent are a person. As persons, we are equal. So there is a what I call a connection of equality, not up and down. So the parent is communicating something to the children at the heart level. What I call this heart connection. There's a heart connection. When there is heart connection, there's love transfusion happening. So from the parent, love flows into the heart of the child, and from the child, love flows into the heart of the parent. So both are being enriched by each other. So I as a parent, I have to grow? Yes. We have to grow all our lives. All our lives. It's a lifelong process of discovering ourselves and growing, connecting. So the child, that heart connection, love transfusion, that is the primary relationship. What you give the child, give some toys, give this, give that, that is secondary. Have we heart connection? Is there love transfusion between me as a parent and the child? That is vital. You know, I've been doing this counseling therapy for several decades. Sometimes parents bring children for counseling, quite often, not sometimes. And they'll say, this is happening, all about the child. Then my first primary focus is not about those complaints. I want to establish rapport with my child, with that child. Sometimes it takes several sessions because I'm an adult, I'm an outsider, newcomer in this child life, so it takes me time. But once I connect with the child, I talk to the parents more than the child. What is the home environment? I'm looking for adverse childhood experiences. And quite often, if there's some problem, behavioral problem with the child, I'm almost certain there's something not okay at home. And when I ask the parent, they don't want to share. No, everything is okay. You know, there's normal fights and all, normal arguments take place. So tell me a little more about those arguments. Then I realized there's much more. The environment is not healthy. So what is important is creating a healthy environment for your child. So I'm giving you a lot of images. I hope that will be helpful for you. So I'm going to give you, what does it mean creating a healthy environment? First thing, have I found joy in my life? 2, is there heart connection? What is the atmosphere? Another image of a gardener. Gardener plants a sapling. Now he trusts that sapling to grow. What does he do? He creates an environment. He creates an environment for the sapling to grow. He loosens the soil, manures it, waters it. If it's too hot, then he provides a shade. If it's too weak, then provides a support. In other words, he creates the environment for the sapling to grow. He's not worried. Will this sapling bear lots of mangoes? What kind of mangoes it will bear? He knows more or less the kind of sapling it is, but he's not worried about that. He's not worried about the future. What he's worried about, that internal process of growth is taking place, and he provides the environment. This is what parents are meant to do. Create the environment of love, security, support, understanding. Now, if you are able to do this, you have become like God, because you are promoting God's love, you're incarnating God's love to your children. And you know what? The children will learn from you because they will imitate you. In fact, lots of things that we do are imitation of our own parents. We may not be aware of it. So first 7 years are vital. So we become God-like. We incarnate God's love. We create that atmosphere for our children. If all families could be made to become aware of what it means, the noble vocation. By the way, this is a vocation, this is not a profession. It's a call. And you have been given that call. You have been gifted this child. Khalil Gibran has a nice, beautiful quote, which I'm not going to share with you right now. Maybe tomorrow I'll quote, about children, how to hold your children. They're gifts of life to you. You don't own them. You don't possess them. They are with you today. Celebrate them. Enjoy them. I want to end this because I was told it's about 45 minutes that I'm supposed to speak. So I want to end this with a quote from Hopi tribe. Hopi tribe are what we call here Indian, Red Indians. That they are like Native Americans in US. There's a tribe called Hopi, H-O-P-I. They have a beautiful quote. The quality of life is not determined by the number of years one has lived, but by the intensity with which one enters every moment. By the way, awareness helps us towards that. The quality of life is not determined by the number of years one has lived, but by the intensity with which one enters every moment. I like to rephrase it and say, the quality of relationship is not determined by the number of years one has had that relationship, but by the intensity with which one enters every moment of that relationship. And this is what I wish you parents in your relationship with your spouse and with your children, so that family becomes a family filled with joy. Thank you.
A very, very enlightening discussion. I mean, it's a very enlightening lecture you have taken, sir. I mean, I haven't sat so quiet since last many days, because I would proudly like to say I am the Anthony sir's student, been in Premanjali, and the real love, the compassion and fear, when I listened from Dr. Anthony, then I actually transformed an occupational therapist to a parent, actually, which is where the parent actually turns where the actual parent is doing a mistake in child development and where the parent is right in child development. We could understand. So it's an amazing session to you could deliver the what is exactly compassion and what exactly is a fear through many of your examples. Sir, I would like to ask you a question over here. When a parent comes to know, about a child's disability, through a professionals or through this thing on, when they know nothing about what they were supposed to know, and then the child is 3 years and it comes to us and is not giving eye contact. Till then, everything is fine. Nothing is absolutely fine. They feel it's natural way, and then when they come to know it's autism or it's some kind of a developmental disability, they go into the fear mode. They go into these things, and then they start comparing, they start analyzing, they start expecting how to come come out from this kind of a condition?
Good question. Not easy to answer. It is common experience for parents when the child is not having certain disabilities, certain challenges, then it's natural for the parents to compare. And therefore, what the parents are actually doing is measuring the external with the externals of another child. Now, what I mentioned to you about the heart connection, love transfusion, how do I handle that? How do I bring that? How do I help the parents to connect them at that level? Now, does that help? Yes. I'll give you a quick example. I was conducting a program in US, and this 8-day program that I conduct, and this lady had attended my program, and she came and saw me, and she says, I have an autistic child. My whole life is connected with that child. So I've got this job, I'm working extra because my insurance doesn't cover his treatment. Now here is something aside I want parents to know. You know, there are ways of helping your child to heal himself or herself. Read this book by Norman. There are two books, at least I know, by Norman Deutsch. Dr. Norman Deutsch. One is Plasticity of the Brain, and second book is Brain That Heals Itself. Now, I didn't meet the child, but she described the child to me. 4 years later, I went again to Atlanta. That's the place where I met her. And she said, she came to know I was in that area. So she said, I want to meet you. So only time I had was she had to pick me up from the airport. I was coming from Washington, DC, and take me to the center where I was conducting the program. So she said, can we have dinner together? I said, yes. While she was taking in the car, there was some kid at the back making noise and talking. So I asked her, who's this? Oh, that's my son. Then with my mouth, I said, autistic, softly so you wouldn't hear? Yes. So I said, he doesn't sound autistic to me. Anyway, we sat in the restaurant. I could have a wonderful conversation for almost an hour with him, all of us together. No one will think he was autistic. In fact, there is Barbara Aerosmith Young, who had multiple 21 or 23 learning disabilities. She healed herself. She's in Canada. I wanted to bring her here to India because I know so many children would benefit. In fact, I wanted to start at Premanjali, their Aerosmith program. Then I realized they have not really made it marketable, open to others to use it. They are more still in that financial mode, if you want to call it. It would be too expensive. Still, I haven't given up the idea to get them because she has created exercises which activates the brain and makes the neurological connections. She has done. So what I would only say to these parents, in the beginning it's a shock, talk to someone, get someone to connect with you, but eventually connect with the heart of the kid. Yeah.
Rightly said,
so
sir.
Answer for your short question.
Rightly said, because a child is going to be a child forever for a parent. Maybe at the you are at the 30 years and he's 4 years, and maybe at the 60 years he's going to be let us say 48 years. So, but still he's going to be a child for us, and connected to our heart. But most of the time what happens, we operate from the fear, and then we start comparing, we start this thing. That's a natural process of these things. So my next question is, most of the time, the anxieties that you are going to take the session tomorrow, the anxieties related to the in the parents, or the kind of stress the parents operate from. I know we are going to have this thing, but just the gist of it, how it happens and how the parent goes into the anxieties and goes into this, so that more and more parents can understand. I'm just pitching it for tomorrow's lecture. Yes.
Yeah. Basically, what happens to parents is, in terms of, first of all, sometimes they can be overwhelmed with what's happening.
Yes.
So they need help in terms of organizing, and most of all, taking care of themselves. Taking care of themselves is vital here. If they don't take care of themselves, they cannot be the best person for the child.
True.
Now, how do you take care of yourself? That is the challenge, to be honest. All other things, you can have skills, this and that. But how do you take care of yourself? And that's why what I shared just now, in some ways connected, is terms of, have I found joy in my life? Am I a joyful person? Then this person will be able to handle anxiety, stress. Now, when the person comes for help as a parent, then you need to help them, not just counseling and therapy and all that. Take them beyond. Look at themselves as a person, as a wonderful person. Do they value themselves? Do they love themselves? Do they value themselves as someone precious, someone beautiful, someone wonderful, just as they are?
Exactly.
So that is important. That is important. And if you have that, you'll be able to handle any stress.
Exactly. Thanks a lot. No, amazing answer, sir. Any parent has any questions? Yes, there is one attendee.
No, there are questions in the question answers.
Okay, just a moment.
Yeah.
Can someone read out to them for me?
Yes.
Yes.
How can we give counseling to a non-verbal child? How do we understand what's going on within him, and how do we help?
Okay. There are two ways of communicating with children: verbal and non-verbal. In fact, there is a research in this, how the facial expression can communicate a lot to the child. True. And there is synchrony between the child and the mother. They have researched this by placing electrodes. They have found out which parts of the brain get activated when the mother looks at the child, and the same areas. So in other words, if I'm a joyful person, and basically I love this, I've made that heart connection with my child, and that can be seen on my face, in the way I hold the child, the way I touch the child, the way I kiss the child. You have communicated very effectively, more effectively than your words. In fact, our non-verbal is more expressive for children than our verbal.
True that, sir.
Yeah.
Yes. In fact, in our therapy sessions, most of the time we ask the parent, you need to operate through your intentions. Suppose you are happy, show the happiness on your face. You are angry, show that anger on your face. If you are loving, then don't hide it. Show that love and joy on your face. So in autism child, when they operate from the non-verbal expressions, in fact, they are mastered in the non-verbal expression. They understand when my mother is going to give me this chocolate, and when my mother is going to fulfill my needs. They know exactly how to how to be demanding in front of the parents. So it's always important that parents actual expressions what we give as a matured person, and what the expressions coming from the intentions, these are two different things. And especially I've seen in the therapist and in the parents, those when the expressions come through our intentions, then to those expressions the child connects much better, because they know this is a pure heart to heart connection, the person is expressing through his heart. So this is what a non-verbal expressions most of the time, non-verbal child can connect to the parent most of the time. But it happens like when the parent is operating from some kind of an expectation, then they don't show a kind of a joy, they're not able to show something, because they have kind of a goal where he's supposed to fulfill this, he's supposed to complete this, he's supposed to this thing, and then we become judgmental how he has done it. And that's how the connection between parent and child gets affected. So we have learned it from you only, the non-verbal in a communication, non-verbal expressions are 93%, and speech matters only 7%. Thanks a lot for this session, Dr. Anthony. We are going to meet you tomorrow for a wonderful session. Definitely.